welcoming the top table individually, but excuse me if I don't do that, because I don't really think it's about us on the top table. I think it's about everybody else in the room today. And Mariam, the wonderful Mariam, was very kind and greeted me on arrival at the hotel today with my colleague Emma, and very kindly put me in a little room by the side, probably to contain me like my mother used to. And I asked, would it be all right to come in the room to see what everybody's up to? And genuinely, it brought me great joy to walk into the room and hear the noise and the chatter and the volume and everybody discussing what we're here for today. So thank you all for being here. It is a pleasure. And fundamentally, why we're here today, I'm especially honoured to be working alongside a women-led civil society organisation to mark, as is noted, yesterday's International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. The leadership shown today is a powerful testament to the courage and resilience of Somali women in the media. We remember the Somali journalists who have lost their lives in the pursuit of truth. Their names and stories must never be forgotten. Justice delayed is justice denied, and impunity must end. I would like to particularly acknowledge the passing of Aman Abdullahi last year, paying the ultimate price for her brave journalism. Women journalists in Somalia face a double burden: threats for their reporting, but also gender-based violence simply for being women. From harassment in newsrooms to online abuse, these attacks are designed to silence, and we must not let them succeed. I want to note at this point, I often feel that it can come across as we're preaching, especially a white man in a suit saying that we know better. And that is absolutely not the case. In the UK, we fight continuously for press freedom. We still do this today. And there is a reason we do that. It's because we identify how important it is. It is a core pillar of our functioning society, but it is a pillar that you continuously have to work against. I'm also conscious that as we sit up here, we may seem very distant from the work that you do. And as I was hearing Mariam's comments and some of the really quite shocking statistics that Masako was talking about, it took me back to a time 11 years ago. And I was in a hotel room, in a hotel not as nice as this. And I woke up one morning with the incandescent rays of the sun shining down. I thought this will be a beautiful morning. And then I received a phone call that was telling me, unfortunately, that this amazing entrepreneurial and dogged female journalist that I'd met the day before and conducted an interview with and had had a long-standing relationship with, not in Somalia, but in another country in Africa, not too far away, had that morning been murdered and executed and slaughtered in the most horrific way, all because she met me the day before. And her meeting me and the conversation that we had and her trying to expose the truth and do her basic job as a journalist led to her death. So please never think that we don't have any idea and understanding. We don't have the complete idea, and that is why we need you and the organisations that we're here with today to engage with us, but we are desperately keen to support you in that venture. The United Kingdom is therefore a steadfast partner in defending media freedom in Somalia and around the world. We have consistently supported Somali journalists through advocacy, training, and engagement with federal government to ensure press freedom continues to be protected. I'm here today to recommit the support of the UK in defending media freedom. The UK, as joint penholder for Somalia on the Human Rights Council, is proud to support Somalia's desire to have more responsibility for improvements in human rights through the removal of the independent expert. With the new National Human Rights Commission established, we urge the FGS to work to make Somalia a more conducive environment for journalists to be able to operate. Journalists must be able to operate in safety and security without restriction. I'd just like to reflect on some of the comments that I think importantly were made yesterday by the Minister as well. And we welcome the efforts to reform the penal code. And as I understand it, the Minister of Justice, His Excellency Moalin, said yesterday that these reforms will be forthcoming. And I think that is a positive step that should be congratulated. And we look forward to seeing it enacted. Organisations such as Somwa are transforming the media landscape. Their work empowers women, amplifies marginalised voices, and challenges entrenched norms. The UK is proud to stand with you. Ending impunity is not just a national issue, it is a global imperative. The UK is proud to support Somalia's journalists, especially women, and to ensure that crimes against them are never met with silence. I wish to give just one more example to show that this isn't just a speech, this is something we do and enact on a day-to-day basis. I have the responsibility for the British government and in the British Embassy here for approving programmes that we do of all sorts. Hundreds of millions of programmes from development to security to human rights support that we deliver in Somalia and are proud to do so. All of these come with a document called an OSJA that we must sign off to get approval and show that we believe they can be delivered in a safe and accountable manner. Depending on the risk of these, they go all the way up to a minister in the UK, and a number of Somalian projects in Somalia go all the way up to a minister in the UK to be signed off. And in every single one of those documents, there is a section about how the media works, and media freedom and press freedom, but also some of the really quite pointed and notable statistics, some of which you've heard from Misako already this morning. Ministers in the UK see what is happening in the media field and the journalism field in Somalia. And we care and we take great note, and it informs what we do here. By having a more robust journalistic setup in Somalia, it supports what the UK is trying to help Somalia with in building its security, stability, and development. Media freedom is a privilege, not a right, but you are helping to deliver that in Somalia. Thank you.
Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. Let me begin with a question. What happens when the voice of a journalist is silenced? The answer is simple and stark. The truth fades. Accountability weakens. The public's right to know erodes. On this International Day, to end impunity for crimes against journalists, we gather not to only recognize this danger, but to act against it. It is an honor to stand before you today as we mark this day. It is more than a date on the calendar. It means ensuring our national framework aligns with international commitments. For example, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. These are not instant threats. They are the promises that should shape our policies, institutions, and daily practice. Some data show that impunity remains endangered. Investigations into assaults, detentions, and killing rarely result in prosecution. This fuels a culture of fear, self-censorship, and silence. But it does not have to be this way. In our report, we emphasize the urgent need for digital literacy and protection mechanism for journalism. Many women told us they lacked the skills or resources to defend themselves online and lacked access to trauma counseling or legal aid when they were targeted. We call for sustained investment in training, monitoring, and legal clinics. Media houses, by the way, who are present today with us, must adopt gender justice, internal policies, maternity leave, equal pay, safe work environment, mechanism to report harassment. Government officials who are today with us must reform laws that criminalize journalism. At Somwa, we believe women journalists are not victims to be protected. They are the leaders to be supported. They are the storytellers whose voices shape Somali's future. Our mission is clear: to ensure that every Somali woman journalist can work freely and safely, both offline and online. But to achieve that, we need action, assistance, commitment. Media houses must adopt their base structure. They must enforce maternity and harassment policies. Legislators must reform laws that criminalize journalistic work. The judiciary must act independently when reporters face threats. Citizens must recognize that protecting journalism means protecting our democracy. Finally, I want to thank UNESCO for its partnership and each of you here today for presence and your commitment. Your presence signals we are no longer looking away. Together we can reclaim our digital spaces and transform them into platforms for empowerment rather than sites of fear. Let this workshop be the beginning of a national movement, a movement that demands safety, justice, and equality for every journalist in Somalia and beyond. Remember, they can silence our microphone, but not our voice. Let that be our rallying cry. Thank you so much for listening.
Mr. Sam Thomas, Deputy Ambassador of British Embassy in Mogadishu, and our friend Kirsten from OHCHR, and Rukaya from UN Women. Thank you also for joining the celebrations. We know that the UK has been a great supporter of UNESCO's Global Media Defense Fund, which has been actually funded and as an initial stage by your government together with Canada. And also welcome to the distinguished journalist from Somalia. It's really an honor for us to be here in Mogadishu for the celebration of the International Day to End Impunity for Crime Against Journalists. We have already started the discussion yesterday, as the official day is on the 2nd of November, which was decided in commemorations of the two French journalists from Radio France International who were killed in Mali in 2030. And I would like also to thank Samoa for your leadership and for organizing this event to advance the safety of women journalists in Somalia. So between 2006 and 2025, UNESCO has been monitoring globally the killing of journalists worldwide and through our observatory. And we have recorded more than 1,800 journalists that have been killed. And the impunity rate remains the same since the beginning of our monitoring exercise. Nearly 9 out of 10 cases remain unsolved. And Somalia has a record number in the killing of journalists. And 2 days ago, UNESCO's Assistant Director General for Communication and Information has released an official request to all our member states, including Somalia, to request to report on the status of investigations of 57 unresolved cases of killing of journalists in Somalia. So according to our latest World Trend report on freedom of expression and media development, which will be officially released by UNESCO in the next weeks in Uzbekistan, where UNESCO is now having a general conference with all our member states. We have a decline by 10% of the global freedom of expression score. And over the same period, since 2012, self-censorship has increased by more than 60%. And the government controlled down the media, narrowing the civic space and undermining independent journalists. So these are the global trends that are also reflected in many countries in Africa, including in Somalia. And in just last 3.5 years, 310 journalists, including 24 women journalists, have been killed while covering conflict and the war. So this year's theme of the International Day to End Impunity for Crime Against Journalists is chat gender-based violence, raising awareness on AI-facilitated gender-based violence against women journalists to reflect on the emerging challenges that we have in the media landscape, with a focus on the threat women journalists faced online and the chilling effect that this can have on freedom of expression. And as Marianne has already mentioned in her opening, the UNESCO study found that 73% of women journalists have already experienced online threat, and sometimes in the form of death threat or sexual abuse. And what is a worrying trend is that 20% of those women who have faced online threat, they have actually faced physical attacks in the reality. So we see the trend when the threats start online, they have also an impact and the real reflections in the real world and the real life of women journalists. And according to the data which were shared yesterday by the National Union of Somali Journalists, there are 21 cases of sexual and gender-based violence targeting women journalists, which was reported last year in Somalia. And those reported cases, they occur both online and offline, taking various forms. And this year's theme on tech-facilitated gender-based violence built also on the consultation that UNESCO has conducted globally on the review of Beijing Plus 30 platforms of declaration. And if I may recall, the Beijing conference was a landmark UN conference in 1995, where we recognized for the first time the role that the media can play to advance gender equality and women's empowerment. And again, this report will be released very soon by UNESCO. But if I may share already some of the key findings, we have found that while women's participation in journalism has increased, we have seen this worrying trend where digital space have become an arena for gender-based violence, which are amplified today by algorithm, AI, AI-generated disinformation campaign, deepfake abuse, etc. So the same tools that can also counter harm, like AI-powered fact-checking, digital safety innovation, inclusive content moderation, which can combat disinformation and promote more inclusivity. So I hope we can discuss on those issues over the next hours today. So it's an opportunity in our workshop to discuss how digital spaces are now shaping freedom of expression in Somalia, and what we can do to transform technologies for protections advocacy and more accountability from the platforms and all these big tech companies. So I wish to thank again everyone for being here, for doing essential work in making the difference, and looking forward to more discussion in the next hour. Thank you very much.
Our first report was on freedom of expression in Somalia. And it was tough because we didn't have at that time, this is in 2015, Yusuf, yeah? When we started developing our database and collecting allegations. And I also had to convince my leadership that we needed to do a public report on human rights in Somalia, which is never an easy thing. You know this as journalists, and we have to pass it through the government. So also have to be a wee bit diplomatic as well on difficult issues. And we chose freedom of expression for a very important reason, which I'll go into. But he said to me, I had written human rights defenders, including journalists. And my boss said to me, well, how are journalists human rights defenders? And then he cited a number of international newspapers, which you wouldn't necessarily think they would report on human rights. But it did make me think. It made me think about, okay, how do we as a human rights office engage with journalists? And I would just say the framing is early warning. A lot of the initial information we get as a human rights officers comes from your work. And the other piece where early warning is very important is when there's oppression or attacks on journalists, it's a sign that human rights generally in a country is not going in a good direction. So you're a double early warning sign for us. So when you take that to a gender lens or a framework of women in that space, it means those issues will become invisible. We won't get the early warning sign about specific abuses or violations in a space that either women journalists are experiencing, or women's issues. And of course, when you go to the subject matters that can be very, very difficult, it renders those invisible. And I'll give two examples. My favorite war correspondent, she started covering actually the Spanish Civil War. So we're talking the 1930s, and she was a correspondent up until the 1990s. And one of the things that when she first went into the conflict space, was trying to change what I would frame as a male-dominated narrative. So until then, conflict and war had been discussed as battle, this battle lines, territory taken, number of enemies killed, and so forth. And she brought a very different dimension. She started talking to soldiers about their lives, to civilians about their lives, about the human impact of war. And it led to a very much a change in how war was reported on, particularly from a female perspective. That also relates to how issues are discussed in Somalia, but there's also the other piece that I would really, really insist on, and as we go into the 16 days of activism later in the month, is around sexual violence and gender-based violence. So as many of you know, there's been a lot of changes in the funding scene in Somalia or globally, and 75 out of 100 one-stop shops have been closed by the United Nations in Somalia. So these one-stop shops are where women seek treatment for gender-based violence. We as human rights get a lot of information from this, obviously not the confidential data, but understanding what the trends are, where this is happening, who are the perpetrators, and it enables us to report. So it's women reporters who do this. So if they're being silenced, you can imagine what type of subject matters are no longer being discussed in the Somali space. And I think these sensitive issues, which are already difficult to do, I think what I'm seeing now with the report that came out, the UNESCO report, the chilling, is it's moving in a very, very negative direction. And as human rights, we're not getting those type of reports. And I see, Marianne, that you reported 60 violations in the last year, and over half of those were online attacks. So as a human rights office, we're not documenting these also in the right way. And I think for the Human Rights Commission, this is going to be something very important that it will need to take up and understand. And I think my last point I want to talk about is around mechanisms. And justice is not a privilege; it's a state duty. Sitting next to the government, I think with the National Human Rights Commission, it's a good step. But there's also the special prosecutor on crimes against journalists. I think this is a mechanism that could be used. I haven't seen much evidence of that to date, and why not? And maybe something we need to look at. But also, as Marianne mentioned, the Somali Labour Code. We now have the reforms, and congratulations to the government on that. So, in Article 8 of the Somali Labour Code is on sexual harassment in the workplace. It's something that you all need to know about and use, and it will take the first woman who uses it. It will take a lot of courage to do that. So congratulations in advance when that happens. But as Marianne, you said yesterday, it must be used, otherwise impunity becomes policy. I thought that was a really beautiful statement. And I think the last point I'd like to make is I was watching the UNESCO video yesterday, which I thought was very nice. And there was a woman called Salome Sakwe who spoke, and she was someone who's experienced online violence. And she said the silencing of one female journalist amounts to the silencing of 1,000 women's voices. Mahatsine.
In Ghana, we say all protocols observed. So on behalf of UN Women, I'm really honored to be part of this important dialogue led by SODMA and also UNESCO under the leadership of Minister of Family and Human Rights Development. The theme for today's event, Digital Facilitated Gender-Based Violence, Safety and Gender Justice, Ending Impunity for Crime Against Journalists in Somalia, is very, very timely and is aligned with this year's theme for 16 days of activism. So it is really timely, and this is what we should. And it is also one of the 6 action agenda areas that was agreed during the celebration of Beijing Plus 30, Digital Revolution. So we have to really look at the pros and cons of digitalization as much as we have to raise awareness, and women have to be literate about it. And also we have to have policies and laws that really protect women, because digitalization is a double-edged sword. It has its positive side and it has its negative, and women seems to be the people who are really suffering from it. So today, on the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, we reaffirm that freedom of expression is a women's rights issue. Somali women journalists are shaping narratives and holding power to account. Yet many face digital harassment, threats, and intimidation. Attack that are gender-based violence and threats to democracy, equality, and press freedom. Despite these challenges, Somali women continue to speak truth to power, advocate for peace, and drive change. They are agents of change. They are innovators and leaders, reshaping Somalia's media and civic spaces. I was so amazed when I came. This is my 4th month, and I was told that programs don't start on time. That's what I was made to understand. Like when you organize programming, we are told to come. And this is, we call it African culture, which is very bad. We have to change it. It happens in my country. Even if you call a politician, he'll come 1 hour late. So, but when I arrived, all of you were seated. So I felt bad. I'm like, oh my God. I just came like 20 minutes late or so because there was another meeting. And then you were all seated, and all these amazing journalists, young journalists. I'm so happy to be, and also young men who are part of you as well. I'm so happy to be in this space. So there are regional and global frameworks, including African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Resolution 522, in 2022, and then the African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls, 2025, recognized the need to protect women in cyberspace. Globally, 38 women report online harassment. In sub-Saharan Africa, 28 experience online violence. Efforts to combat online GBV are growing. Regional initiatives like Kikatonet, e-learning, and African Girl Can Code initiative, and there's also Somali initiatives such as the Wahili app. There's also our feminist coalition training that was targeting women, and then the national strategy for ending violence against women and girls are all critical interventions and instruments and policy framework that will really help us to address this issue. So UN Women support this effort by strengthening laws, coordinating partnerships, and implementing programs that ensure digital spaces are safe, inclusive, and empowering for women. Let us transform technology from a space of fear into a platform of empowerment, ensuring no woman journalist is silenced by threats or impunity. I call on government, development partners, civil society, fellow UN partners who are here, women-led organizations, women journalists, and all stakeholders. Let us work together to criminalize technology-facilitated violence, especially those targeted at female journalists, and ensure perpetrators are held accountable. Hold tech companies accountable through human rights-based policies. Support survivors with justice, protection, and specialized services. Boost digital literacy and resilience for women and girls as part of this one of the 6 action agenda, as I told you, from Beijing, which is digitalization. Then invest in innovation and feminist movement to transform norms and strengthen advocacy. Empowering women, protecting voices, reclaiming digital spaces, and protecting female journalists. This is our shared commitment, our collective call to action. I thank you.
maanta waxaan halka u fadhinaa xuska maalinta caalamiga ah ee la dagaalanka ciqaab la'aanta dembiyada ka dhanka ah saxafiyiinta, mudanayaal iyo marwooyin, madaxda dowladda, ururada warbaahinta, wakiilada saaxiibada caalamka ee ka socda UNESCO, UNDP, UNATMIS, European Cup, UN Women, safaaradda boqortooyada Ingiriiska, iyo marsharafta kale. Mar labaad, wasalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu. waxaa sharaf weydii ah inaan maanta halkan idinkala soo qayb galo anigoo ku hadlaya magaca wasiirka warfaafinta dhaqanka iyo dalxiiska mudane Daawud Aweys Jaamac, munaasabadda qiimaha badan ee lagu xusayo maalinta caalamiga ah ee la dagaalanka ciqaab la'aanta dembiyada dhanka ka ah saxafiyiinta. waxaan halkan uga mahadnaqayaa oo mahadnaq iyo bogaadin u dirayaa ururka haweenka saxafiyiinta Soomaaliyeed ee Somwa, dadaalkooda hogaamineed ee abaabulka munaasabadda muhiimka ah, iyagoo gacan ka helaya hay'adda UNESCO. maalinta waxaa dunida oo dhan laga xusaa si dib loogu xaqiijiyo ballanqaadka wadajirka ah ee ku aadan xorriyadda saxaafadda, cadaaladda, iyo ilaalinta saxafiyiinta halista u gala helidda iyo gudbinta xogta dhabta ah ama warka saxda ah ee bulshada u sheegayaan. qaramada midoobey waxay maalintan u astaysay maalin la muujiyo in aan la aqbali karin weerar kasta oo lagu qaado saxafi gudanaya waajibaadkiisa, isla markaana aanu helin baaritaan ama lagu ciqaabin ciddii u geysatay dhibaatada. dalka Soomaaliya arrintan waxay u leedahay micno weyn oo gaar ah. dhowr iyo 10 sano oo la soo dhaafay waxaa jira saxafiyiin u geeriyooday gudashada waajibaadkooda xirfadeed iyagoo u halgamayay runta, cadaaladda, iyo wacyigelinta bulshada. dowladda Soomaaliyeed ee federaalka ee uu hogaamiyo madaxweyne Dr. Xasan Sheekh Maxamuud iyo ra'iisul wasaare Xamse Cabdi Barre waxay mudnaanta koowaad siiyeen xorriyadda saxaafadda iyo badbaadinta saxafiyiinta, iyadoo loo arko tiir muhiim u ah hannaanka dimuqraadiyadda iyo xukun wanaagga. wasaaradda warfaafinta dhaqanka iyo dalxiiska, iyadoo kaashanaysa hay'adaha qaranka iyo kuwa caalamiga ah, waxay sii xoojinaysaa shuruucda ilaalinta saxaafadda, habraacyada wada shaqaynta hay'adaha dowladda, iyo hannaanka wanaagga loola shaqeeyo amniga saxafiyiinta Soomaaliyeed. waxaan ku guuleysanay inaan dib u eegno oo la jaan qaadno xeerarka warbaahinta ee caalamka ah iyo kuwa goboleedkaba, in la aas-aaso qaab dhismeedyo isgaarsiineed iyo oo isku duwid heer federaal iyo heer dowlad goboleed, kobcinta wada shaqayn daacad ah oo u dhaxaysa warbaahinta iyo hay'adaha dowladda, lana yareeyo khilaafaadka, laguna dhammeeyo wada hashi, lana raaco sharciga. caqabadaha hadda jira si xal looga helo caqabadaha hadda saxufiyiinta soo wajaha loogana faa'iidaysto fursadaha waa inaan xoojinno awoodda baaritaan iyo garsoorka hay-adaha cadaaladda, kordhinno iskaashiga u dhexeeya warbaahinta, saxaafadda, booliska iyo garsoorka. waxaan kale oo maanta u fadhinaa in loo asteeyey maanta dhibaatada loogu geysto muxuu ahaa baraha bulshada wariyaasha haweenka ah ama wariyaasha hablaha ah. wasaaradda warfaafintu iyadoo ka duulaysa dhibaatooyinka waaweyn ay wiiqaya teknolojiyadda cusub waxa ay diyaarisay siyaasadda maaraynta baraha bulshada. walaha wasiirada la horgeyn doonaa dhowaan si iyada oo laga faa'iidaysanayo muhiimadda ay leedahay teknolojiyada ama social media, lana ilaalinayo inaanu sumcadda dalka, sumcadda saxafiyiinta iyo sumcadda dadka Soomaaliyeed waxba u yeelin. wasaaradda warfaafintu waxay soo dhoweynaysaa xuska maalintan. waxaan aad iyo aad uga mahad celinaynaa hay-adaha ay ugu horeysa UNESCO ee ka qayb qaatay fulinta maantan in hawshan u dhacdo. waxaan kale u mahad celinaynaa dhammaan saxafiyiinta Soomaalida ka qayb qaatay. waxaan aad iyo aad ugu faraxsanay inaan arko maanta indhaha ku arko intaasoo hablood oo saxufiyiina oo ay isu keeneen maalintan xuskeeda. waxaan mahad gaara u celinaynaa ururka Somwa hogaamiso Maria Seylac oo qabanqaabiyey kulankan. aad iyo aad baa u mahadsantiin. kulankuna waa inoo xidhan yahay.
markaad fiiriso dhinac walba yani xaalado adag baa jira wadankii ka jira kuwaasoo maaragtay ay ka mid yihiin xaaladaad ku shaqaynaysaa. marka waxaan garaabayaa wax walba oo la sheego oo maaragtay ii sheeg inta case hadda la ii sheegay oo hadda reportka akhrinayeen ilaa 57 case oo weli la xalin inta hadda lasoo report gareeyay kaliya ay yihiin. in kaloo ka badan laga yaabo ay jiraan weli oo maaragtay la ii sheegay soo report gareynin. iyo guud ahaanba in maaragtay ii sheegeen tacadiyada ka dhanka ah ii sheegeen gabdhaha iyo saxaafadaba ay maaragtay percentage badan tahay ayaa maaragtay mar walba garwaaqsanahay. laakiin dowlad ahaan wixii tabartanada ee karaankanaga inaan maaragtay ka hor imaano aanan raalli ka ahayn aan qirno kulligeenna aan maaragtay ii sheegeen wada iftiimino cid walbo maaragtay ku kacaysa dembiyada noocaas oo kale ah. idinkaa iftiimin kara iftiinkaad iftiimisaan baa maaragtay waxaa dhici karta in maaragtay wax badan looga qabto ama maaragtay ii sheegeen falcelin ay ka imaato dowladda dhankeeda ah. ka wasaarad ahaan waxaan nahay dee laba arrimoodba waa meesha ku jiraan. xuquuqul insaanna maaragtay waa portfolioda ka shaqeynay ka mid tahay. other areana waxaa waa in haddana wasaaraddii gabdhaha aan nahay. dhihi maayo haddaan nahay gabdhaha Soomaaliyeed laakiin waan ku dhowahay waan ku dhowahay. marka waxaan ku boorinayaa xaqiiqatan yani gabdhaha waayahan soo baxay oo ka shaqeeya saxaafadda way ka xirfad badan yihiin ragga maaragtay markay tagto dhanka saxaafadda. taasna waxaa keenaya dad badan oo tusaale oo wanaagsan oo lagu daydo ayaa jira. waxaan saxaafadda ku arkay oo aniga iga qabsaday shakhsiyan yani ninku dhahaya waddadan maaragtay baad isiinin waxbaa kaa sheegaya oo ku caynaya laakiin gabadh ma arkin dhahaysa saas. marka gabdhuhu waxay leeyihiin integrity iyo maaragtay damiir nool bay leeyihiin oo aysan waxyaabaha qaar ku dhehi karin. laakiin yani waxaan ka sheekeynayo waxaan ka mid ahay kiisaskan maybe 58 laga dhigi kara aniga victim baan ahaa u ahaa maaragtay weliba arrinkaas oo ahaa. marka damiirkaas nool maadaama ay leeyihiin aysan waxyaabaha qaar ku dhiiran karin inay maaragtay noogu bataan oo ay ka shaqeeyaan aad baan ugu faraxsannahay. waana ka xunnahay maaragtay wax walbo maaragtay ka dhana gabdhaha gaar ahaan ay sheegeen gabdhaha ka shaqeeya saxaafadda. dee adduunyada horumartay bay ka jirtaa let alone maaragtay Soomaaliya xaaladeeda iyo maaragtay sheeg waxay ku sugan tahay dareemi karayso. arrimaha waayahan dambe loo guuray oo meediyaha oo ay ku bateen tiim badan oo qaaqlayaal ah oo dee aan saxaafad ka soo jeedin keliya maaragtay ummadda ku bogaadiya wax xun qabiil yani ree hebel iyo hebel baan maaragtay kan bulgaraynayna waxaan maaragtay micno badan samaynaynin. waa kuwa maaragtay waxyaabaha badan maaragtay ama dhibaatooyinka badan ka geysanaya maaragtay sheegay digitalka maaragtay media waayahan ka geysanaya. kuwaasaa magac dilaya dad badan oo maaragtay wanaagsan. gabdho badanna maaragtay sheeg iyagana meeshaas in harassment iyo wax looga sheego markay ka hadlaan xaqana iyadana waa wax dhaca. marka aad baan uga xumahay. Thank you so much, distinguished guests, international partners, development partners, members of media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's both an honor and privilege to participate here today for the commemorating ending immunity for crimes against women at this important national dialogue on digital safety, gender justice, and protection of journalists in Somalia. This gathering or discussion should not be more timely. As our society continues to embrace digital transformation, we must also confront the risks and responsibilities that come with it. Digital platforms have become a powerful tool for connection, learning, and civic engagement. They amplify voices, open access to information, and create new opportunity for social change. Yet, for many, especially women in media, these same spaces have also become areas of harassment, intimidation, and violence. We are here today because of freedom of expression must never come at the cost of safety, and no journalist, particularly no woman journalist, should face abuse, threat, or fear for doing their work. I wish to commend the Somali Media Women Association, SOMA, for organizing this vital workshop for its tireless effort to empower women journalists and advocate for a safer digital environment. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge our esteemed partners, UNESCO, the British Embassy, Christian from OTMIS HRPG office, for their unwavering commitment to advancing freedom of expression, promoting accountability, and protecting human rights in Somalia. Your collaboration with the government institutions, such as our ministry, is helping to shape a future where digital technology supports empowerment and not exploitation. The Ministry of Family and Human Rights remains firmly committed to building an inclusive, right-based, and safe digital environment for all. Our ongoing efforts include strengthening national policies and legal frameworks to address technology, facilitate gender-based violence, and digital harassment, promoting digital literacy, ethical media engagement, and online safety, particularly for women, girls, and young media professionals. Enhancing coordination between government institutions, civil society, and international partners to ensure effective prevention, response, and accountability mechanisms. Expanding access to psychosocial support, legal aid, and justice for survivors of online abuse and violence. These commitments are guided by our national and international human rights obligations, including federal constitution, women, peace, and security the agenda, our national action plan, the national human rights transition plan, all of which underscore the protection of journalists and the promotion of gender equality. As we engage in today's discussion, I urge all participants, government representatives, journalists, civil society actors, and international partners to approach this dialogue with openness and determination. Let us share our particular solution. Practical solution is identify policy gaps and agree on actionable steps that can strengthen digital safety mechanisms, promote gender justice, and ensure that immunity for crimes against journalists has no place in Somalia. This workshop must not end as a conversation alone. Let it be a platform for coordinated action, driving the development of robust framework and partnership that protect all journalists, uphold freedom of expression, and ensure accountability for perpetrators of violence. In close, I reaffirm the ministry deeply appreciation to SOMA and all partners represented here today for their leadership, advocacy, and solidarity. Your continued collaboration with the ministry contributes to building a Somalia where the digital space becomes a force for empowerment, justice, and equality. Let us continue to work together, government, civil society, and the media, to ensure that every journalist and every woman can work freely, safely, and with dignity. With these remarks, I officially declare our workshop is open today, and thank you, and I wish you all a fruitful and impactful session.